Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it will be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. You never had your car. This past Sunday, I decided to take a track day at a regionally known drag strip during a no prep event. If you're not from the car scene, just Google what is no prep drag racing for a full understanding. My partner and I took 2 pickup trucks with 2 car trailers, with 3 cars in them along with tools, spare wheels with tires on them and so on. I brought my 1996 Honda Civic hatchback, which, without going full car nerd, has an engine swap and a lot of work done. It's quite fast for a Honda, but really just a toy. I also brought my Nissan Laurel, which is imported from Japan and was never sold in the United States. The car is primarily a drift car, but with 30 minutes of work it can be changed over to a drag setup. My buddy brought his 1996 Mitsubishi Eclipse GSX. We were running all day making small wagers with those at the track, and together we were up just over 20k on the day from wagers. Around 8 PM, with the track closing at 9 PM, I had the douchiest of chads approach me and engage in a typical smack talk about how my cars are slow and how incredible his car is. Yada yada yada. After being goaded numerous times, declining a 10k race and really just trying to pack up for the day, this jerk decided to insult my wife in a rather derogatory and misogynistic way. The comments were both disgusting and about how a woman doesn't belong on a racetrack. I thought for a second before responding. Then I said to our entitled jerk, "Since women do not belong on a racetrack, why don't you race her in the Laurel?"
"10k, bro. That's easy money. Let's go."
No. If you're racing her, it's going to be for titles. Known in Hollywood as pink slips or just pinks.
"Hell yeah, I'll take your car."
He starts laughing and further insulting my wife to his cronies. We shook hands, pulled out paperwork and found a track official to hold both sets of paperwork before getting ready for the run. One single 1/4 mile race for both cars. The tree turned green, and they blew off the line. The jerk pulled slightly ahead out of the gate, and you could just feel the misogynistic comments he was saying to himself as he flew down the track. About halfway down the track, wife caught up to him and surpassed him, finishing the race with enough room to parallel park an F-250 between them. My wife pulled back into our still smiling and laughing, excited over her win as it was only her 3rd pass on the track for the day. I went to the staff member to collect paperwork without problem and then went over to the jerk stool to collect our car. As we turned the corner into the stool, the jerk yelled,
"Heck no! I'm not giving my car to a woman. She got lucky. 2 out of 3, screw this."
And all that stuff. And all of his friends were laughing at him and making the "you got beat up by a girl" jokes that were popular in middle school. I noticed the keys were still in the car, so I quickly reached into the car and snatched them. After grabbing the keys, I was sucker punched by the jerk, and I did defend myself. I did not engage in a full-on brawl, merely defended myself after giving it one good swing. Track officials separated us and the jerk started screaming to the staff that I was trying to steal his car and saying he was going to call the police. You see, in my state all pits are legal at the track, as it's no different than pitting on a horse. Taxes are paid on the pit, and in the event of a slip race, taxes are paid on the vehicle through the DMV. The jerk's threat of police held no power. He continued to scream for another 15 minutes, not letting anyone else get a word in. And finally, the owner of the track came by and ordered the jerk off the property, or he would call the police for a trespass order. Owner also informed the jerk he was banned from the track for the rest of the year. We returned to our stall with the keys in hand and waited for the jerk to leave. And having no choice, he left without his car. This morning I was served with a $100,000 lawsuit from this jerk. Turns out, he had taken a $100K loan to build this race car and still owes almost all of it. According to his suit, the loan was taken in July of last year. This guy not only lost the race fair and square, which he knowingly bet his car on, but decided to litigate against me, not my wife. I can only assume this is due to the jerk's blind rage and misogyny. Before anyone asks, he lost a 1969 Pontiac GTO with a specialty engine in it from Texas Speed and a whole lot of other engine upgrades. The engine alone retails for $45,000. Checking the prices of a stock 69 GTO, they seem to be between 60 and 70K, so I'd assume this car is worth 75 to 80K. Update. You see, the entitled douche? Chad Chaddington III decided to file a frivolous lawsuit which cost me $500 to have my lawyer get it thrown out before the week's end. However, you see, Monday we filed our own paperwork. First, we started with the PPOs for both myself and my wife. We then filed a defamation suit that also seeks legal fees as well as missed income due to time spent at the courts. The suit in total was for $18,000. I own 4 businesses and make on average $1,380 an hour. And my wife makes around $300 an hour. Today we went into court over the PPOs. My wife and I decided to take the GTO to court, and as I parked in the parking lot, I saw Chad getting out of his car directly across from us. Chad looked like steam should be coming from his ears, but he did manage to not say a word. After about 70 minutes, the court called our cases for the PPOs. Chad wanted a hearing. Through the hearing, the whole story was told and a judge was very interested in Chad's physical aggression and threats. Chad also brought up the fact that the court threw out his lawsuit for theft and stated he's going to lose his house because he cannot get justice. The judge called for a recess and returned 15 minutes later with the now dismissed lawsuit filed by Chad. According to Chad's lawsuit, he was forced into the bed via threats of violence. After about 15 minutes of Chad explaining how he was in fear for his life as I threatened him repeatedly, it was now my attorney's turn to speak. You see, on all of my cars except the Honda, not only do I have dash cams, but I have black view systems which record inside and outside audio along with 270 degrees around the car and the interior. We had this footage available in court. The footage directly contradicted Chad's sob story. After the video finished playing, the judge ruled for 3 years PPOs against Chad for both myself and my wife, a $5,000 settlement, and he found Chad in contempt of court for perjuring himself. Eventually, Chad was sentenced to 7 days in county lockup and a $3,000 fine for his lies. Please, fellas, leave the misogyny in the 1950s. Next story. Do not let me go to the medical room. Enjoy cleaning up after me. This is actually my mom's story, but I thought it belonged here, so here goes. My mom was a pretty good student, mostly B's and C's with the occasional A. She would never use the toilet or medical room just to go out of lessons. Her French teacher, I will call her Witch, had favorite students that she was nice to and acted like the rest weren't there. My mom was not one of her favorites. The last lesson on a Friday was French. My mom was feeling nauseous, but she didn't think it was anything, so she just brushed it off and went to her last lesson. About halfway through the lesson, it got worse. She was feeling dizzy and hot, and her friend, who was on the desk next to hers, leant over and asked if she was okay, because she was just going bare. So she raised her hand and asked to go to the medical room. And of course, the witch thought she was trying to get out of lessons. She gave her a short lecture on the importance of staying in class. 5 minutes later, my mom put her hand up again and asked to go to the medical room. And again she said no. She put her hand again, and this time her friend backed her up and pointed out that she was going pale. And the witch told my mom to come up to the front of the class to her desk. So my mom did. And the witch then got right in her face and yelled at her to not make another sound, and if she did, she would get an after-school detention with her. The witch then pointed to my mom's seat, told her to go and sit down. About 10 minutes later from the end of the lesson, my mom got that feeling you get when you know it's too late, and she threw up all over her desk and the floor. The witch looked shocked when it happened, and there were still 10 minutes left of the lesson, so the witch had to clean up her desk. My mom did not find it funny at the time, as she had just thrown up and felt very ill and sorry. But now she remembered it and she says it was definitely worth it to see the look on this witch's face when all this happened suddenly. Next story. Yeah, sure. I'll come back with ID. I only live around the corner. I'll give a little bit of context first. I live in the UK, where it's illegal to operate a petrol pump if you're under the age of 16, and you can take your driving test from the age of 17. The town/village I grew up in was small and had just a single petrol station with 2 pumps. Sometimes you'd have to wait behind a car or two, but being a small town, it was never really much of an issue. At the end, I had just recently passed my test and had been driving for a week or two. When you pass your test, they give you a temporary paper license to use until the official one arrives in the post. These paper licenses do not have a photo or anything on them, just your name, address, and so on. You might already be able to work out where this is going. So let's get on to the story. It was early Wednesday morning and I had decided to drive into the school. My car was almost on empty, so I swung by the petrol station on the way out of town to put my regular $5 in the tank. As a broke student, I could never afford to fill up more than 5 to 10 pounds at a time, so I was a regular visitor at the petrol station. On this particular day, there was a new server behind the counter who I guess had only just started there. Coincidentally, one of the pumps was out of order that morning, which meant there was only one available pump in the whole town. I pull up to the pump and at this point, there is only one other car behind me. I put my measly amount of petrol in the tank and head over to the garage to pay. As I approach the counter, I notice the attendant is giving me an odd look, and the conversation went something like this.
Sorry, but can I ask to see some ID?
He says to me, I don't have any photo ID with me.
Well, I'm afraid I cannot sell petrol to someone that might be under 16.
A little shell-shocked at the apparent incompetence, I reply, I drove a car in here, and you have to be 17 to drive. Is that not proof enough?
I'm sorry, but without ID, I cannot do anything.
Look, I can get my paper license from the car, but it doesn't have a photo on it.
Well, it needs to be photo ID, otherwise I don't know it's really you.
Right. Well, I live a few minutes away. I can come back with my passport in a few minutes.
Okay, but you'll have to leave the car here because I cannot let you drive off without paying.
At this point, I'm absolutely dumbfounded. It is only a few minutes drive back home, but at least a 20-minute walk, which would mean a 40-minute round trip. Desperate to not have to walk 40 minutes home and back for the sake of 5 pounds, I try one more time. It's gonna take me 40 minutes to get some ID. Can you really not sell me this 5 pounds of petrol?
I'm afraid not. It's not up to me.
I turned around and walk out of the station. Okay, I'll leave the car here, and I will come back in 40 minutes with some ID. Sure enough, I leave the garage and begin the walk home, with my car exactly where the attendant told me to leave it. 20 minutes later, I arrive home, but by this point I'm pretty thirsty. I always left early for school because I work better in the morning He'd like to get an hour or two of work done before classes start. So, with about an hour to spare before I really need to be leaving for school, I decide to make myself a cup of tea and maybe have a second breakfast. All the while, I'm fully aware that my car is currently locked and parked in front of the only petrol pump in the whole town. About 15 minutes pass, by which point I've had a cup of tea and second breakfast. So, I pick up my passport and head out the door. Almost an hour after leaving the garage, I arrive back, passport in hand. And sure enough, there is now a queue of 10 to 15 cars and a very panicked-looking attendant trying to explain to a horde of angry customers why they have had to wait for almost an hour to fill up their cars before they can drive to work. At just about the same time I arrive, the guy's manager shows up. I explain to the manager that I had to leave the car here because without ID, I hadn't been allowed to pay for the petrol. And without paying for the petrol, I hadn't been allowed to drive the car anywhere. Long story short, they ended up issuing over £200 in free petrol to the waiting customers, and I was never again asked for an ID. Edit. A lot of people seem to be asking why I didn't just drive off and leave the money with them, or why I didn't call the police. Well, I was young and ignorant. I didn't want to drive off for fear of repercussion, and I was always brought up with the understanding that you only call police for an emergency and so on. The issue did not seem important enough to involve the police at that point. Also, it was the only petrol station within about 5 miles. So I guess I did not want to get banned or whatever. For those asking, yes, it was a standard UK pump where the attendant authorizes before pumping and you pay after. I did not realize that was so unusual elsewhere. When you pass your test, you can hand over your provisional, which they send off to the DVLA with the relevant paperwork to get your full license. Your pass certificate acts as a temporary license in the interim, and is all you're supposed to need. Otherwise, you have to do all the paperwork and send it off yourself. Next story. The police will deal with this. This is my manager's story. We'll call him Bruce. He has been managing both my and another location's min days. With last night being his official last night before coming here permanently, Bruce is a funking boss. Puns be fun. So this is awesome. But evidently he just had to go out with a bang. He was regaling me with a take about the cops being called, so I had to ask. Bruce was trained as a manager at the other Wriggle Road location, covering at our Mindy's fast food guru frequently, always letting us know just how horrible working at Wriggle Road is. Always, because we're dying to know. Bruce was sitting around cleaning things he's cleaned previously, waiting for any of the 4 scheduled employees to show up, and no one did. The general manager gives him the go-ahead to 86 the store, shut her down. As he's wrapping things up, dishes, mopping, fryer filter exchange and clean, etc., a lady pipes in through the drive-thru demanding to speak with the manager about fully replacing her meal because we're idiots. No other specified reason. Bruce goes, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, Mindy's is closed right now. You'll have to come back tomorrow." Funk that! You order my order or I will… Unintelligible, but she said order 8 more times. Radio silence. Hello? Bruce continued his calm, "Ma'am, we're closed, I'm sorry. I'm the only one here." Now the drive-thru lady was super peeved, saying, "If you ain't dealing with this, the police will. They will deal with this." At the sound of this, Bruce stopped listening to all else, took his headset off, and continued closing down. 5 or 10 minutes later, the police call the Mindy's store number, which Bruce picks up, and he decides right then and there that yes, the police will deal with this. This is the Phoenix Town Police. There is a report of an issue in the store. Bruce began to not just explain-ogize for the wasted time, explaining the real situation. A belligerent customer who, by the way, is still in the drive-thru. The police said they will handle it. Asked if he needed to be contacted by PD upon arrival, and all the usual. Good old Bruce was content to just watch 3 patrol cars swarm this lady and her friend, watching one cuffed and the other needing a ride home. He grabbed his banana board and literally rode off into the sunset. Edit. Bruce acted maliciously because he was familiar with this lady, based almost solely on the use of the word idiot, and when talking with the cops he could have answered saying it was a misunderstanding and a non-issue. He knew she was relentless, he knew she had a face for radio. He bet the over on the fact that this lady will be hauled off if the cops actually came. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.